Hello, in this one, a 17 trillion damage build. The concept of damage scaling in this one is going to fit for many builds. Let's overview my items, Lacrima, Skillboard, Zodiacs, and much more. First of all, I'm a critical plus maximize build. That means a scale from critical and maximization chance. Most of my items has maximized damage multiplier. One of the examples is my Bogan. It's 30% maximized damage on the implicit. At the same time, because I'm critical build, I'm running a critical base Bogan, which means it has the most critical rate possible, which is 10. And I'm running a suffix for get critical rate multiplier, as you want to do on any critical build. My second Bogan is a Akban's Curse, which is basically transited item. It has a maximized damage increase per 500 overheat, so overall this is 60% maximized damage multiplier. It has damage jump, so on, but this is more my build specific. That out of the way, let's talk about simpler concepts. And one of that is Enhanced Potion Effect. And it's a belt. Without Enhanced Potion Effect belt, it's nearly impossible to get any significant damage. Because I have around 200 Enhanced Potion Effect, I didn't do the math, but that translates into 51% damage amplification on my potion. And 51% damage amplification is hella lot. At the same time, I get so much more HP amp, I get amplification, elemental resistances. The belt makes life much easier, and you want to craft it as soon as possible. For transited items that I have equipped, those depend on this season. This season, we have two that I could get. It's Afro Stories and Surging Knowledge. Every single time the new season is introduced, we get new type of transcended unique items. And those transcended unique items always drop at a higher chance. With that in mind, if I do this build, for example, next season, it could look very different on the transcended item side. But right now, let's talk about Afro Stories. Afro Stories is insane for critical plus maximize build, as it scales per ancient gear equipped, and I have equipped those 6. As you can see, per 1 gear I get 15 maximized damage multiplier, 1.5% damage amplification per 1 ancient, and then at 5 ancients I get 13% maximization chance, which is a crazy amount of maximization chance. The neck, I have a Surging Knowledge neck that again gives me maximization chance, which is really nice, and at the same time it gives additional poison damage on every hit. That means I can apply status effects that are specific to poison. That means it's a venom status effect. And with that, I can pick up on my rune mastery levels some extra damage against poison status effects. And overall, this is quite a nice increase in damage. I'm gonna skip on the Grave Robber King ring, as this one doesn't give you any damage in the training arena. It's only damage on the maps. And basically, it's a good ring. Besides that, let's talk about my charms a little bit. I have 2 Fetty Hamal, 140 Castor, 140 Level, 140 Alyssa. And all of my charms, most of my charms have crit rate, crit damage, maximize damage, which is basically a Bish charm. And this one has a maximization chance. And this is the main source of maximization chance when you are doing a hybrid build. It's the charm legendary prefixes. I have 2 of those, because I got really unlucky this season. However, this would be the main idea on how to scale your damage. Of course, maximize damage is the biz you can have as a third affix on your charm. However, I have some HPs. I don't want to die. I'm running 38k HP, but with a HP amp potion, I'm close to 60k. This one has elemental resistances. That's another thing. Because, as you can see, my items had not a single elemental resistance roll. However, my elemental resistances are still kinda good. And let's talk about this. Most of my elemental resistance comes from orbs. And orbs are really easy to get this season, and you should do it also. You want to be close to a 90% on the resistance orbs. At the same time, some of my elemental resistances come from my Zodiac Stones. As you can see, it's not a lot, but throughout all of the Zodiac Stones, it adds up to quite a bit. I can show you a few more, but I don't remember on which I have those elemental resistances, but yeah, it's up to 10 from 5 to 10. And that's the main idea on how I basically cap my resistances without having any resistance rolls on my items. At the same time, if you are struggling with it, you can always use a high elemental resistance potion, which is, in my case, plus 100. For you, it's gonna be a little bit lower. Items out of the way, let's talk about my Lacrima. As Lacrima basically dictates how you build your character. In this case, there is one item, and that is Capri's Heart. Why Capri's Heart? First of all, it's 40% fire damage and 73 chaos resistance. This one fixes my chaos res, it gives me additional fire damage, which is almost equal to damage jump, it gives me critical damage, and it gives me max energies. This neck in the Lacrima is insanely strong. Of course, I have my Aquila Eternity, which allows me to use Veil of Protection. It gives me effect, it gives me HPM, and it gives me resource cost, which is a really solid for a chest, and I'm not even using an offensive chest, because this defensive chest is way too good. And this is the cherry on a cake, is my two-handed weapon, which has a few things. First of all, it has insane amount of damage amplification, which you want to have on your Lacrima. It has critical damage, it has some damage multiplier against crowd control, which I always crowd control because on how the crowd control works in this game, and some physical damage flat. Right now, because we got some changes in Season 7, and absorption rate can go even up to 130% on a yellow items, having a fully unique Lacrima is not really that good of a choice. And this is a prime example of it. There is not a good two-handed Lacrima and even one-handed Lacrima unique for a critical build. On a critical build, you really want to have a crafted weapon. And that's how it looks like. So if we add everything up, my Lacrima alone gives me more than 100% damage jump. That means it's twice my damage just from my Lacrima. Right now, my Zodiacs and my skill board. First of all, I want to get out of the way this. I have Extract Energy on a critical build, which I never recommended to do for any new players when they are doing critical build. And there is a few reasons for that. First of all, whenever you do Extract Energy on your main skill, you get a lot of damage amplification per energy possessed. That means you can get up to 50% damage jump, and it's a lot of damage. 50% damage jump on a link rune is a lot. However, as the way energies work, there is a buff and debuff, and when you are doing a critical build, you run into two problems. The first problem is that from cold energy, you have decreased critical chance by 4% per stack. So if you do the math, at 10 stacks, it's minus 40% critical chance. And that 40% critical chance is really hard to overcome, but possible. However, one thing that you can't overcome when you do this specific type of build is maximization chance decrease. And maximization chance on a hybrid build is insane amount of damage increase. You're not gonna scale if you have zero maximization chance. That in mind, I'm still using this. So, how did I solve this? First of all, let's go to my Zodiacs. And in here, there is a node called Electric Current Wall, which decreases the debuff effect by 50%. That means my maximization chance, instead of minus 20, I only have minus 10. And having only minus 10, it's possible to solve this. it's basically twice as good. With that in mind, critical chance. On a critical build, I can show you how I solved it. Basically, I have Outlaw, which gives me critical rate and critical chance, and I am highly of a stack on critical rate. My equipment scores give me plus 20 critical rate, and I'm still running Caster Reflection, which is plus 15. And if you check my critical rate, I have 574, and this number is before the Outlaw. And Outlaw itself, the link room, if we calculate it, it gives me around 400% critical rate multiplier. So if you do the math, simple math, my critical value is around 8,000. That means I can lose a little bit of crit, and I'm still gonna be good on my crit rate. And that's basically the main reason why I am doing a critical plus maximize build, and I'm still doing the energies, because I overcap everything that I have. I'm investing more into crit. I'm investing really big onto my maximization chance. That way I lose a little bit, but just the damage amp from the extract energy gives me so much more damage. At the same time, I want to mention this also. I have 2 extract energies. Second extract energy is basically to help me with the stacks. I have it on Illusion Axe and on counter attack. But at the same time, this one is awakened into damage taken dampening per 1 energy possessed. That means it gives me damage taken dampenings. And right now, I have a few sources of those. I have it on my shoulders, which is 23%. I have it on my mastery, which is not a lot, but still around 10%. And by having it on my second extract energy, I'm gonna do a quick test. You can see that my dampenings are going up per every single energy that I have. So this is also a damage increase, an extra layer of defense. And I'm overcapped on my dampenings, by the way. We can look at my skill board a little bit more. There is a few things I want to mention. I'm running sprint, but as I explained, with my bootcraft, we have so much movement speed increase and it gives flat, so sprint is really nice. My uptime is almost 100%. I still could do a little bit of crafting to solve this. Another thing in here is Illusion Axe. On Illusion Axe I have 2 things, which is low armor. It's really nice. It doesn't work on maps, it works better on single target, but it's armor per stack decrease and physical damage jump. I'm running Preemptive Strike, which basically gives me a buff, and that buff is a global buff. It's called Preemptive Strike. Whenever you hit an enemy on full health, you get a damage amplification. This one is not necessary, but when you this late into the game, you try to get any possible source of damage. My counter attack has a center of gravity. This one is awakened to Verity. That means whenever I move, I get a stack, and that stack is damage multiplier and critical damage per stack. And everything else is kinda default. I talked about this on my build guides. Weekend Totem with Enhanced Totem, Area Totem, just any source of damage that I can get. However, there is another thing. I have 2 skill boards, and my second skill board is a little bit more interesting. This one, I have Shockwave Arrow that is linked with spell activation on hit towards my poison area. Why poison area? That comes from Surging Knowledge, which gain powerful effect on poison area. And that powerful effect is maximize damage multiplier and damage taken decrease. Poison damage doesn't work for me because I'm not poison damage. That's why I have this type of setup. However, even if you don't have a necklace, you can still benefit from a skill. In my case, it's a Shockwave Arrow because I am a projectile, but at the same time, you can do something like Illusion Hook. Illusion Hook also works really nice, and maybe even Shout of Terror, if you're willing to do some testing. And the main idea of having another skill on your skill board is to apply a debuff. In this case, it's Cut. And Cut inflicts a debuff that gives me damage amplification while enemy is bleeding. So it's 12% damage jump. At the same time, my build specific, I'm using close range shot, which is again another type of projectile damage amplification that's on a global buff. And this type of concept, it's not really good for maps. You're not gonna be pressing this on maps, especially the way I have it, but on training dummy, with my shockwave arrow, with my buffed poison area from the necklace, it gives me quite a bit of damage. At the same time, you can do something similar with illusion hook. So, let's say you have everything that I have. What's left to scale your damage? And the answer is really simple in one. I kinda avoided showing you my ancient rolls because I have not a single good ancient roll. That means all of my damage is gonna come from the ancients. As you can see, I have some kind of poison damage pen. My helmet only has an skill rune cooldown recovery speed, but everything else is median or sentries. Right? This one is useless, this one is useless, and this one is useless. That means right now, I have to make a good ancient rolls. That's one way to scale my damage. Another one is a soulstone. I did not do much of my soulstone, and I'm not gonna do it this season. I think soulstone is a little bit too hard and too time consuming. However, as I mentioned before, I have Ilya, and I suggest if you don't want to do soulstone, you don't want to roll good stats in here, which if you can get 3 good stats, it's gonna be insane amount of damage, as you can get like almost 30% damage jump or even more in here. However, Ilya gives you a buff that's on cooldown. It's not 100% uptime, but it gives you 15% damage jump. So this one is a cheaper way to have at least a decent soulstone. That would be another way to get my damage. Another one is, of course, maximization chance. I have so much crit, I don't scale from crit anymore. I can show you that. It's 995, but that's before the energies. With energies, I have around 1.2k, which is more than enough. So everything has to be rerolled into maximization chance. Maximization chance, maximization chance. And I keep working on it, and I keep using 20 reversions, 30 reversions, I still can't get anything. But that would be one way. Of course, recrafting my Chaos Star into strike damage amplifications would also work, but that's too much work. Besides that, getting a better Lacrima also would be a choice. But in this case, I would need to get a two-hander yellow that has more than 116% absorption rate. I would need to get again necklace slot with 120, and the best option would be to get a crafted belt. Crafted belt would be another, I don't even know, 50% damage amplification on my potion. So yeah, if I could get a belt with absorption rate of 100 and plus, or even around 100, I would get another 50% of my damage. Rolling higher tier affixes is also an option, but this one I don't even want to mention. It's way too much work, it's way too expensive. I kinda craft my items, and whatever I craft, I keep for the rest of the season. Affix tier wise, right? Tier 10s. It's not good, but I'm not min-maxing that much. So why did I choose to do the throw explosive build this season? And that comes from the Zodiac changes. Bogans were left for dead for quite some time, but they fixed the main issue with the Frenzied Bullet talent, which makes you not overheat when you are dual wielding. And at the same time, they added quite a bit of amp when you have a lot of overheat. That means a big quality of life change. However, there is a few more things. First of all, there is a Bogan weapon passive, which says that we get damage amplification per accumulated overheat. So at 100% overheat, that's another 60% damage amplification for free. And my throw explosive, when awakened to origin, it has 0.8% damage amplification per 1% overheat accumulation. That means overheat doesn't have a good flat and good multiplier. However, it has a really nice projectile count scaling and insane amount of damage amplification. That's what makes Throw Explosive so good this season. However, I'm mentioning it right now, mapping with Throw Explosive is really weird. Throw Explosive is basically a melee skill. True melee skill, as the cast range for the Throw Explosive is really small. However, I really like this one. I enjoy doing this one. However, at this stage, I'm done with the build. I'm still gonna try to do some ancient reversions, maybe to reroll some of my charms. I'm still waiting for my disassembled shop to get my divine essences. If I can, I'm gonna get a little bit more damage. Maybe I'm gonna do another update on this one, if I can find something interesting, as most of the things that's left is just good RNG. That's what I'm hoping for. Right now, I'm waiting for a mid-season patch, as they teased some of the skill rune balance changes, and I'm hoping that my next build is gonna be a melee build. If there is not that many changes to the skill runes, maybe this is gonna be the end of the season for me. However, after we get the skill rune balance changes, I'm gonna do some build guides, so wait for those if you're interested. But for this one, GG's, bye bye, and see you in the next one.